2005, housing costs doubled. Okay, that is 50% a year. That's going from a long trend of approximately a 6% inflation rate. Okay, that is market manipulation in your face. I know what the hell I'm talking about. I know what it's going to take to have sound currency. And it's going to take not being a coward and standing up to the forces that need to be stood up to. It's the money printers. All these top politicians are just whoring themselves out to these people. They're evil. They're evil. They are completely sold out. Whether they are aware of it or not, their Lord and Savior is Satan. Okay, and if they don't repent, they'll perish. And anybody that's on the side of the establishment is going to the same place as those people. They're liars and deceivers and talk about blood on their hands. These people are murderers from Jump Street. Okay, and I'm their friend. I'm the guy warning them. I'm saying you've got a chance. Everybody needs God's grace and mercy. I need it. I'm far from perfect. I need His forgiveness every day. I ask for it. I confess my sins. And I receive that grace and the strength to carry on and to face this sick, depraved world. This world system, not the earth. It's a wonderful, beautiful earth. All creation is awesome. But the system is just imbued, marinated, inundated with evil. And we've all got to face the music. And we've all got to stand up individually and collectively and say, no, 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 no. You pay the debt. We've got to hold somebody accountable on taxes. Why don't we start at the very tip top with the trillionaires? We make the Federal Reserve bankers. Take it out of their accounts. Ben Bernanke, Ellen Greenspan, Janet Yellen. Take it out of their accounts. Hold somebody accountable for the homelessness, the exploding poverty, the ever-increasing disparity, the wealth disparity in this country and around the world. The austerity, the debt. They say it's your fault. You're the cause of the problem. Don't you dare blame labor when they get a cost of living adjustment. That's a check and balance. But it's not enough. You've got to identify the perpetrators of the market manipulation and the price fixing. We've got to get on board, folks. We've got to understand what's happening here. And all I believe is that this is a means to the end. Because I really don't think that we're going to have the kind of leadership, because they'll just do what they did to JFK. Okay? If you really get somebody in there that's not a coward, that's going to stand up to the people that need to be stood up to and say, no, I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. We're going to set the captives free, and this is how we're going to do it. Through sound currency. That's right. It's going to lift everybody's ship. Nobody's going to be living in fear, financial insecurity of your perverted God, your false way to extract your perverted form of reverence. No more. No more. That's what's coming. And everybody better get rid of that. Get ready for that. Because the return of Jesus, listen, it might not happen in my life. I might be way wrong. All these preachers out there, these guys, these old men that have devoted their life to the study of Bible prophecy, who say the signs are all in place. Even looking at the teachings of Jesus where he says, look for these signs right before I return. God doesn't want us caught with our pants down, folks. God wanted us to have every chance in the world. He's trying to be gentle with us. But the signs are there. And even if it's not for 1,000 years, it doesn't matter. Be ready today to meet your Maker, because this might be your last day on earth. And I think I'm going to change gears in this video and talk about my dad a little bit, because he's been sick. And my dad and I have about as close of a relationship as any dad and son, I think, have. I'm 55 now. My dad is 86. I'll be 56 in May. So we're very close, just about 30 years difference. His birthday is March 6th, 1928, and mine was May 17th, 1958. And his name is Richard Credit. And, I don't like to say my name for whatever reasons. I'm just a guy. I'm just a human. is my attitude. And, a name is temporary. And like, what was it Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name is still a rose, or something to that effect. But, there's not much in a name. We can all change our names. And, so many famous people have changed their names. And the last thing I want to do is be famous or, and so anyhow. But, it's not a bad name. It's probably got a bad connotation now. I mean, with credit and lending and all that association. A lot of people hate the fact that they had good credit at one time because they figure, well, look how it's kicked me in the teeth now that, I got one of these liar loans and, and the banks technically tell them I owe them money. It's called, it's a deficit judgment or something to that effect. I learned this in real estate class, but but the banks can do that. They say, well, we sold your house at a loss and, you actually owed us X amount and you only paid us Y amount. So there's this deficit judgment we've got against you. So it's a very serious thing when what they've done to people's lives is horrific. The divorces and broken homes they've caused, the mass homelessness and poverty they've caused. And it's all benefited people like landlords. You learn about this in real estate. I learned about this, how it's good when there's high foreclosure rates. Business is brisk for landlords, and they can jack up their prices based on, they'll quote supply and demand. They won't mention a thing about the market manipulation and whatnot that's caused it. But back to my dad, and I've had a really interesting life with my dad. And, I was born in L.A., and, we lived in Los Angeles, in Manhattan Beach when I was young. That's where I lived when JFK was assassinated. And because I was 5 going to kindergarten, I do remember that distinctly. The whole neighborhood was weeping and wailing. People were very upset. I remember my dad built a small sailboat in the garage there. From there, from Manhattan Beach, we moved to Florida. I lived in Inglewood, Florida when I was 5. That was like paradise to me. We had 50 palm trees in our yard, I remember. We had porpoises jumping around in the front playfully in the morning. It was just heaven. I used to collect little, these horseshoe, they were these little, the horse, what do they call them? These little horse fish, I can't think of the exact name of seahorses. And I had a pet, one of these crabs. I forget what they call them. They got the dome on them, horseshoe crab. And so this was just the most fun time of my life for me. And I had my 2 older sisters and my mom, and it was just a great time. I remember this one time a giant manta ray came into. We had a little lagoon between separated properties. And it came right through up close, and my sister and I were scared because we used to play in a little dinghy, a little rubber boat, a raft out in the water. And we called my dad, and he took a pitchfork, and he actually threw it, from what I remember, and he actually got the fish, and it ended up killing the fish, and we pulled it up on the shore, and it rotted and stunk to high heaven for a while. I forget how it was finally discarded. Maybe it was buried or finally decomposed, taken off by predators. I don't remember. But from Florida, we didn't live there long, and I was about 6, I guess, when we moved west again, and we were going to live in Corpus Christi, Texas, I remember, for some reason. That was a desirable area. We checked it out. My dad didn't like it as much as he thought he would, and so we headed further west, and we wound up we stayed with my mom's brother, I think, for a while in Pacific Grove. He was a police officer. And that's quite a tragic story. His wife ended up shortly thereafter. This was about the early 1960s, mid-60s. His wife took her life with his revolver, purportedly, and very sad situation. But from there, we ended up moving to Santa Cruz, California. We bought a house in Santa Cruz, $8,000, arm's length transaction, which means it wasn't a forced sale. It was just an average, everyday sale, single family house, nice, middle class, quiet neighborhood. You could buy it on any minimum wage job back then. $1.35, probably in the mid 60s was minimum wage. So, $50, $60 a month would pay your mortgage. Your wife could stay home and take care of the house. It was really a sweet time, except for the war. My dad was strongly opposed to that war, and he was a Marine in the Second World War, and He actually started in the Merchant Marine. He had to steal his brother's ID. He was too young. It was during the Great Depression. His mother died when he was 8 years old. And things were really rough. You know, he used to deliver newspapers and milk in the snow for a dime, and he'd have to give that to his stepmother to, help pay household expenses. So it was pretty miserable for him. And so he joined the Merchant Marine, and from there he got into the Marine Corps, and he served in the Second World War. He never saw combat. He took up boxing in the Marine Corps. And he's a big guy. He's about 6'2", and I guess he was wiry back then. Very edgy fella, and he very strong, dynamic personality, charismatic. But they called him Nails Credit. I guess he was pretty tough. And one time he busted his drill sergeant, I guess, in the chop, something like that, for just being a mean so and so and waking him up out of a nap or something like that. But he didn't. I'm used to seeing a guy that didn't take nothing from anybody. He wrote a book that he's not proud of at this point in his life back in the 60s called Apple Pie. It was a satire of the United States government. And although the book sold really well, and he was on a mainstream media talk show, and he got good reviews. It was very controversial, and it sold millions of copies. But mysteriously it disappeared from the shelves. Apparently there were some things he was talking about in the book that he wasn't supposed to talk about, and so it was censored. For whatever reason it went against our First Amendment rights, and they took the book off the shelves even though it was a good seller. So it was censored. And anyhow, long story short, he wanted to get out of the country at that point, and our house. We had a house fire that ended up taking our house out in 1964, 65, I guess it was. And I guess he had enough of everything. He wasn't sure. Maybe he thought it was the government or something. My family was out at a drive-in movie that night, and I remember seeing Batman, I think it was, and came home to see, and our house was totaled by the flames. And so, anyhow, I guess he just had enough and wanted to leave the country. So he had the idea of moving to the Virgin Islands, and I guess we stopped over in Puerto Rico, and what a gas that was. I was a little kid and 8 years old, and I was playing with the lizards. I remember all over the place. They were even coming into the huts. We stayed on a little beach hut. It was just great. I remember this vendor selling these greasy little potato chips. They were so good. And I don't know what they called those things. I don't even know if they were potatoes, but whatever they were, it was good. But from there we went to the Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands. And, it's predominantly black people there. And I guess those are the natives, endemic to the islands. And but he sensed some prejudice. And so we just couldn't hang there. That was a cool thing, too. We stayed in a motel there, and I'll never forget the smell. Whenever I smell anything that comes close to the smell of the beach because of all the decomposing seashells, I guess, and just the smells, the ambient smells of the area there, it was very unique. But it was really a neat experience. So then, for whatever reason, we ended up moving to England, and I lived on the Isle of Wight in Ryde, and went to school there, and that was pretty neat, And I remember going to school in whatever grade it was, second or third grade, I guess, and I remember one time playing in the schoolyard during recess. The kid gave me a bloody nose, and it was an accident. It wasn't a fight, but I went to the yard duty teacher, and I told her that the kid had given me a bloody nose, and I got in trouble with the principal. They call the headmaster, because in England, and I know probably the same now, but bloody is like saying the F word. So, you just don't do it, and so. Anyhow, I guess once the misunderstanding was straightened out, I didn't get in a lot of trouble. My parents probably laughed it off. And so anyhow, my dad bought this little sailboat. He had to fix up the 25-foot sloop sailboat in another part of England, not too far away. But I remember my mom and sister stayed in the house we had rented, and we went and worked on the boat. And back then in the mid '60s, I know I was going in pubs, and I was actually able to drink. I remember getting, ass-faced drunk, as they say, and I was puking my guts out. And I don't think I was ready to drink again until I was of age. So I think my dad straightened me out on that. But you can see my dad and I have been really close. And, I guess I could go into the rest of my life story here about my dad and I and all the time we spent together. I guess the reason